You gotta have a passion to do the work, to collaborate with other people, to reach out. Because what each one of us doing is helping other people live.
Now we are sisters or menstruators in arms, and I can see us pushing this across the nation.
So for me, the most rewarding part is that one good thing equates to so much more. And even if you can do a little bit, you're doing a lot.
That level of empathy, I think Sarah was talking to earlier, is what's more rewarding, so that, you know, my future babies and future daughters don't have to live in this like stigmatized world that we're currently living in right now.
We all are in this space to make life better for people, period. Welcome to our panel about Project Period and period poverty. I am so honored to be able to host this through Impact 6 and speak to you lovely, educated, amazing women who are in the fight to end period poverty and making a real difference in our communities. So let me, for those of you who don't know, Project Period. So Project Period, it is an annual initiative providing essential menstrual products to vulnerable populations and focused on creating a positive environment throughout under-resourced communities. Here at Impact 6, we will work alongside other nonprofit organizations to provide free supplies to those in need and to spread awareness about period poverty in America, as well as third world countries. So that was the drive behind Project Period, Impact 6. We looked at a need in the community and we thought how we can insert ourselves, especially during Women's Month, and how to help those who menstruate in our community get access to what they need in order to live their lives. So what we want to do in our thought process behind gathering you here today was to talk about period poverty, what you're seeing in your communities, what you're doing through your organizations, and to have an open discussion. So the conversation, we really want to facilitate, empower, and raise awareness. And we brought together some really amazing women that I'd love to go around and introduce. So first we have Cynthia Mendenhall, that's Sister from the Watts Community Leader. She's Watts Community Leader. Sister, would you just like to introduce yourself and let us know what you do over there at Watts?
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Cynthia Mendenhall. They call me Sister Soldier and Big Mama. Well, I'm from the community of Watts. I was raised in Watts in the Pure Court housing development, but I represent 14 housing sites when I was over all the housing development. And what that is that when it's a need, people get evicted, or it's an issue, women issue, or female issue, or reentry, women getting out of prison, homeless women, anything issue has got to do with a woman, domestic violence, rape, anything, probation, parole, that Sister Soldier is right in front to help someone. And that's my job. My mission is to empower and inspire many lives I can, many women as I can, and a new vision, a life beyond their dreams. So what
Thank you, Sister. That's amazing.
Okay, that's really glad. Introduction. That's just an introduction.
We're Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We would love to expound on that as we go further. So thank you so much. We're also joined by Jessica Beard, who is Diversity Inclusion at Universal Music Group. Say hi, Jessica.
Hey, Randy. Hey, everyone else. I'm really excited to be here. As Randy mentioned, I'm part of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging team at Universal Music Group. And I just recently started mentoring in Sister Soldier's community in Watts to young girls of color.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica. We appreciate you being here. We also have Nikki Ann Yee. She is the co-founder of the Ma'i movement. Nikki.
Aloha, everyone. Good morning. So my sisters and I started Ma'i Movement Hawaii because we're Native Hawaiian women. And, growing up, we've seen and experienced, a lot of the struggles that locals face. Everybody has this idea that Hawaii is this beautiful, idyllic place, but there's definitely a cost to paradise. A lot of people working multiple jobs, living paycheck to paycheck. And I had first learned about period poverty, 3 years ago when I was living overseas and wanted to start a nonprofit for domestic workers and refugees in Hong Kong. Fast forward, my sister, who works for Native Hawaiian Health in one of the largest hospital clinics, we're in the middle of a pandemic. She's hearing about all this need, calls me up and was like, hey, sis, let's do something about this for our people. And, I would have thought that by now, there'd be a lot of activists in this arena, but we found out that there wasn't. And so that phone call just sparked this movement, and here we are.
She called herself fucking doctor.
Awesome. That's amazing, Nikki. Thank you so much for your time for us today. And we also have Sarah Killingsworth. She is the founder of My Menstrual Cup. Sarah?
Well, hi, everybody. From Texas. I think I'm right in the dead center here of all of our different geographic locations. And I love hearing what everyone else is doing in this area. So I am brand spanking new into more of a nonprofit sector. I began what was going to be an e-commerce selling menstrual cups. And what I found over the last 2 years was I ended up donating more products than I was selling because I was running into situations where there was need, and most importantly, there was so much complete miseducation, uneducation, or just kind of a little bit of a stigma involved in the use of a menstrual cup.
Oh, yeah.
And so I found myself doing so much more education, which then brought on bigger conversations, such as the importance of being able to talk about the female anatomy, the importance of being able to talk about the female reproductive system, and how that's helpful to us as women. But then, of course, my mission, and this was before I transitioned into a nonprofit, my mission has always been to elevate the feminine experience. And what I found is when you do that, you elevate the human experience, because empowered women empowered others, as we all know.
That's a bar.
Sarah, thank you so much. This is love that we are all here today. We are women and we are discussing period poverty. We all touch it in some shape and way. But before we get really into it, because there's so much we can talk about, let's just take a step back and what is period poverty? I'm sure people are going to watch this and be like, what does that mean? So Nikki, can you start us off and just let us know what is period poverty?
So how we define it is that period poverty is the inability to get, menstrual products, whether it's pads, tampons, or cups. And, this is something that we're fighting as well as we're trying to push, our efforts and awareness and legislation. But even though there's that word poverty in it, so automatically people just think, okay, it's linked to money, which it is, right? Lack of income. But it also has to deal with cultural or societal shame and stigma. There's also lack of education. So Sarah just nailed it. That's also a big part of it. And, clean places with running water to take care of your period. And, Sister Soldier talked about it as well, those in houseless situations, in transition. So, this is a big part. I'm sure all of us are just trying to touch on everything when it comes to period poverty.
Excellent. Thank you. And Sister Soldier, I know that you are right there in the community. You are working with some of the most vulnerable groups. How do you see period poverty impacting the groups that you work with?
A lot of women out here in the community all over East LA, Watson, St. Pedro, it's a lot of problems is going on because of the domestic violence rate and COVID-19. When COVID came and hit us, a lot of women is out of work. A lot of mothers is out of work. So we see a lot of the high rate of domestic violence. I just seen a woman yesterday came to my home with her whole face cut and her hand cut, and she didn't have no clothes, and she's on drugs right now. She told me why. So she was a nurse, and if they don't help, they don't want to go. So they rather have someone to talk to, like I was just telling Max. I've been up all night dealing with issues in the community. When I go to the tent, when Max give me hygiene and they give me food to take out to the females all over the homeless, then they just want you to sit there and listen to them. Nobody's not coming out there listening out in the field, you know. And then the women live here in the housing development. I have to go to their home or they come to me, and I just sit there and listen because no one is listening. I am that person. I was that domestic violence. I was that little girl that got molested. My mother was on drugs. Didn't have nowhere to turn. That's why we need all of you guys here today. We need more females out here to support this. I've been volunteering doing this work. Thank Dr. Max for seeing me and hearing me and the need and the issues in the community.
Thank you, Sister Soldier. That sounds like you're doing really great work and that you see firsthand that, you know, these women are facing the toughest circumstances. And one of the things that is often overlooked is menstruation and making sure that they can have safe periods, anyone who menstruates in those situations. And Sarah, I think you touched on this. You started realizing that you are giving away more product than you're selling. So in your experience, as you noticed that and as you started turning towards the nonprofit sphere, how did you see that playing out? What was the eye-opening moment where you realized why you're giving away more in the face of period poverty?
Yeah, it came, everything happens in inches, right? And then suddenly you look back and you're a mile down a road you didn't expect to be, right? And, same is true with my menstrual cup company and now nonprofit, as I'm in the transition of that. And it legitimately in my end, it came from a place of non-education. I not only encountered women who just simply couldn't afford the product as I was explaining it or sharing it. And so then something in me was like, okay, but you really need this, right? And I would end up giving that away. But it also came from women who are actually perfectly capable of affording something like a menstrual cup or something of that nature, or who can buy their own tampons. But there's so much miseducation and misunderstanding of our own anatomy. Then there was a lot of taboo about the function of using a cup, right? And so, and I, without getting too graphic, although I believe in the importance of being graphic, right? Without getting too graphic, there was lots of feedback such as, I don't know if I could, would be confident enough to insert that in my body, right? And it really underscored the importance of A, understanding our bodies, and B, understanding what products are best for our bodies. And yet at the same time, I was getting feedback that spoke to the concept of, no, I can't wear tampons because I have an allergic reaction, or because this, or because that. And so we're dealing with less than optimal products. And so I hear Sister is in like what I would call the front lines of women in poverty and domestic violence. And she is doing crucial, critical work. And I got goosebumps listening to her. The conversations I had were a little bit different, a little bit further back from that like absolute front line of the war zone when it comes to period poverty, and more into the challenges amongst taboo and miseducation.
And then you can watch it after. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is huge. Miseducation in surrounding it. I mean, there's so much stigma. People who don't menstruate don't know how to deal with it. My dad and my father's, it was a subject that I never talked about really, even with my mom or my sister. It was kind of like, you have your period and you just do it. We don't really talk about everything that goes into it, and it stays stigmatized. And so, Jessica, what are some of the frustrations you come across as you've worked, and you address period poverty and menstrual issues? What are some of the frustrations you come across in regards to misinformation about periods?
Well, first I just want to call out that relatively new to this space, but you just had a buzzword right now, and that was frustration. And that's essentially what brought me to this space. I look at the concept of period poverty as a form of oppression. And as a Black woman, I'm all too familiar with the subtle and overt ways, our society makes people like me, feel oppressed. So I think it's, ridiculous and very intentional that something so normal as having a period is so taboo, and that we're made to feel shameful about it. So when, discussing the frustrations, or what I've seen, at least in my circle, is the fact that in workplace and in schools, we're implicitly forced to hide what's going on every month. For most women, we have our periods every month, obviously, and are likely to do so for at least 40 years of our lives. And can you think of anything that is that consistent in life? I don't think so. So, why can't we talk about it freely? And why can't young girls and women get the products and resources that they need to ensure feminine care? So this isn't a woman's right issue. It's a basic human rights issue. So those are many of the frustrations that I've seen, that I've discussed with colleagues, friends. I mentioned that I recently started mentoring to young girls of color, and it's really important that I have the tools and get educated in this space so that I can actually provide it to them at this early stage in their lives.
100%, Jessica. You just said, you're new to this and the frustration level is high, and we're already making an impact here. And so you touched on the youth and how, all of us on this panel are coming from different generations, and we still had the same experience of a stigmatized period. And so my question to the panel, and anyone can jump in to answer this, is how are we addressing the youth and helping them destigmatize it so they don't have to go through the same thing that we went through and are currently going through?
Randy, if I can jump in, I'd love to add to that. Okay. So I have put a lot of thought to what is the remedy, because I think we're all pretty good at identifying some frustrations and issues regarding this space and this important factor in every woman's life. And by woman, how many of us started our periods at 9 years old? Or 10 years old, 11 years old. So in my case, I was 13. So I was very far from mentally and maturity-wise being a woman. And yet you're dealing with, your reproductive system that early. And so it is so critical that we include young people as part of our outreach efforts. And I think the most important thing is to recognize some of the origins. I'm just going to touch on that, and then I'll move forward to what we can do. I believe a lot of the origins in menstruation stigma comes from the, I'm going to say, kind of subconscious push that women are more important by their form, meaning how we look, before our function, meaning how our body operates, right? And so we live in a culture, or any culture, that idolizes our beauty over our functionality. You're going to come across stigma, because menstruation gets in the way of sexuality, right? Even though it's the heart of our sexual reproductive system, it gets in the way, it's messy, it's not part of something which is considered sexy. So I think that begins the origins of it. In my mind, the best way to address it moving forward is to say the right words, which is the reason why I named MMC my menstrual cup. I didn't want to call it diva, this, that, goddess, Luna, whatever you want to say. Because when we inherently do not speak a word, we give something else power, right? So as an example, when we refer to any of our body parts, any of our anatomy, apart from what it is, when you call the vagina something other than vagina, you are putting some kind of connotation upon that body part. And in the same way, when it comes to our menstruation, our period, we need to speak those words and stick to those words, because it's A, scientific, it's B, it serves our functionality, and C, it reminds us that those parts of our bodies are for us first.
Yeah, and I agree more with Sarah. I think labels and terminology is important. And I would add to that, I think which is the case with everything important, it starts with education. So everyone, and that includes young boys and men, should be educated on what menstruation is and how it impacts women's lives. And yes, it's awkward and uncomfortable, But talking about it really is the first step to actually normalizing and destigmatizing it. The reason why I personally believe it's taboo and stigmatized is because of men. They're not familiar with our plight in this area. Hearing the word blood makes them feel uncomfortable, and it's the reason why we are forced to feel shameful and dirty about it. So I think educating particularly young boys at a certain age is important. Because I remember when I was like in sex ed classes, when it came to talking about periods, then the boys went to like another class or activity. They were in the same room. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? And we see the impact and effects of that later on in life.
So,
excuse me, this is Sister Soldier speaking. I want to say that in my culture here, in the hood, in the community, and Watts, the girls don't have nobody that tells them about hygiene, menstruation, and everything. The kids don't know nothing about that. Because some of the kids at home is either with foster or grandmother or somebody. So we need mentors here to educate them. Because when my menstruation started when I was in junior high, when I was in class, I stayed in there. I was embarrassed. I was in the shower at school. I didn't know what was going on because my mom was on drugs. I didn't know what that was. My coach had to come in and tell me it's okay, hug me, and I was ashamed. Nowadays, nobody's telling the kids about hygiene. I would love to get packages that Max, I was just telling Max going to help me get, where I can go talk to these young girls in the community, drawing down Nickerson, Imperial, wherever, in East LA, the Harbor, wherever I can go in the housing development and speak about this issue. Talk in Compton, get with the people and talk to these young people. It's a different culture now with the young people. They're using tissue. They're not using tampons or anything or pull-up panties. Like we educate our women. But everyone else besides me on this panel don't know what we're going through over here. We need mentorship so I can walk with you and I can show you. We talk to the young girls and they're going to tell you, I don't know what that is. Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in. You guys have touched on, so many amazing points. And, like in Hawaii, how we're trying to engage youth as well. I mean, you guys have talking a lot about education. And what we've done is, right, there is no single solution to poverty. We all that, right? We all agree on that. And, like we are trying to push for legislation, but it's like, you can't wait for the government. You need to take action. And so one way, and this is like, what Sarah is doing, right? We said, okay, let's try to get some reusable products, because even if you're blending, reusable and disposable, you're still gonna save some money, and it's good for the earth and good for your body. So we said, okay, how are we going to do that? And that's where we came up with a program where we took all those like financial, like educational access barriers down for everyone. And we said, look, we are going to give you guys period underwear or a cup or a cloth pad. But, you can't just always give the product, right? So we said, okay, well, they got to learn about it, right? Because we don't know enough about our bodies. And so then we created very locally inspired. So we got, we're putting in like some of our Hawaiian words that locals would understand, having visual artists so that it speaks to them, because, we partner with a lot of organizations, and Hawaii has one of, we have a bad sex trafficking problem, and, fosters, and, they don't have that adult, and we've been asked, do you guys have education? And I don't know about you guys, but, when I first saw, my mom took me to doctors, they showed me pictures, I was traumatized. Like, to this day, I was just like, it has scarred me for life. And so we wanted something that no matter your age, your race, and, we also have one of the highest transgender populations in the nation. So elevating, the trans and the non-binary experience, like Jessica said, it's a human rights issue. It extends beyond girls and women. And so, we put all of this in like easy to digest. Like we had fourth graders all the way up to college university students, like reading through our material. And I think it's so important, especially people of color, to really elevate their own experiences too in this space. you know, and, you know, how does it affect, you know, like your own communities, right? And how can you speak to menstruation and period poverty? And, you know, it was pretty incredible because, you know, then from there, a lot of students have started to organize in their own committees, and they've reached out to us like, hey, can we partner on donation drives? So we do like 50-50 drives with them. And, you know, we got them involved in the Senate hearings and House hearings that we just had. So we're starting to see young people submitting testimony for bills and for resolutions, you know, like we make
He also has the audacity. What's up with this girl's fucking Wi-Fi?
It ain't no thing, you know, just put it out there.
Born and raised.
You know, just a little bit of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, thank you. And it sounds like as you all speak, we are all recognizing the need across the board. We've all come into these unique situations where, you know, menstruation is touched every aspect, and the lack of products, the lack of education. And so if I'm someone who's watching this panel, I'm Joe Smith, who's watching this panel in their community and saying, okay, I recognize the need. What do I do? So what advice can you give someone who is new to this and is just trying to look to help their community in this aspect? What is something that is simple yet measurable and impactful that someone could do to step up and help end period poverty? Jessica, why don't we start with you and pick your brain on this and go around?
I would say just look to see what organizations actually exist in the community. They may be few and far between, but there are organizations that do exist that are trying to educate, if not the community, the world, on the fact that there is period poverty, because a lot of people don't realize that. So what Nikki's doing, what Sarah's doing in their organizations, really seeing how you can get involved just on a micro level. I think the pink tax or the tampon tax should be gotten rid of. So talking to, you know, sending letters to your local government officials, because the fact that our government considers these feminine care products as luxury items, I think is just mind-boggling. Like, we have no choice but to have a period. So why are these products considered a luxury? So, you know, I think that tax needs to be gotten rid of. And so all of us collectively can, you know, get involved in that regard and, you know, get in contact with our government officials so they take note of this.
Yeah, definitely. Powerful stuff. Sarah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jessica's totally right. And I'll definitely add to that that the impact of empathy and kindness has a gorgeous and sometimes immeasurable ripple effect. And so I'm going to talk about just real quickly what I do with my own sons. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, 2 boys. Right? And they're very aware that women, and I just refer to it as mommies at the moment, just keeping it as age appropriate as I can. Mommies have blood time, menstruation time, and they're very comfortable with seeing products in their home available to myself. Of course, I'm the woman in this house. But my hope is that if someone were to see this and hear, like, okay, well, I hadn't thought of that before, right? I guess that can absolutely be an issue or concern, is that just beginning from a space of empathy will allow you to see opportunities to be a positive impact through kindness of and just doing nice things for other people. And as an example, I hope that in the future my sons are not intentional activists, but instead just empathetic people who, when they see opportunities to be helpful, to be understanding, to be a listening ear, can do all of that. And then, of course, as they find their passion spaces, to seek after that in a more proactive manner. But I think if you're looking for something very small and actionable, just creating conversation within your own home amongst your sons and daughters, your nieces and nephews, can have a significantly great impact upon our future in as little as 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, 100% right. I like the fact that you spoke to teaching your sons, because people who don't menstruate need to know about menstruation. They need to help destigmatize it and break it down. And Sister Soldier, you need volunteers that come to help with Watts. What would you tell someone volunteering about how to help the young menstruators that they're going to come in contact with? What could you tell them about how to help in that aspect?
How's it look?
Oh, your phone is on mute. Max, could you unmute her real quick on the phone?
10 out of 10. You belong on a Pantene commercial.
We can't. You're muted on the computer in the...
Oh, never mind. You don't belong on that commercial.
We can't. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to... It's saying I can't unmute someone else.
Commercial.
1 second. Technical difficulties.
Actually hates on it.
It says...
He does?
So on the phone, you can't... The phone itself can't be unmuted. I can hear you through the video.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you through the video. Go ahead and try to speak through the video.
Okay. Yes, with me collaborating with other organizations, I would love for other organizations to collaborate with us, and then I would like for each one of them to take either 5 girls apiece and then educate them on what's going on and teach them the right thing to do, and teach their mom as well. And we bring the mothers or any females in the household, and we come twice a week, and we can work together like that and educate the whole family. That's what I would like to do, collaborate with different organizations.
That sounds amazing. It sounds like you want to be able to, we have to teach everybody. We have to teach the whole family. We teach the father not to be ashamed of walking down the aisle to pick up the pads. And Nikki, I know that your organization does a lot of education. How do you address, like Sister Soldier said, the whole family when it comes to menstruation for somebody?
But, I would say it's perfect timing to talk about this, because just this last week, I was going to pick up my son, and I have heavy menstrual bleeding disorder. And even though I had changed right before, I had my cup, my pad, I was like, okay, I'm going to go get him. Within 15 minutes, I leaked through. And so I had to take off luckily I had a sweater. I took it off. I had to wrap it around my waist. And when I picked up I was calling my husband, you have to come. I cannot walk and get him. I can't. I'm standing behind a pole at school. Please come and pick us up and bring a towel. And when my son came out, I was like, check mommy's bag. Am I okay? Can I walk to the car? And it was just, it's like Sarah. My kids, we talk about periods all the time. My daughter has drawn this cartoon, this comic strip of, what it is to get your period, because she's 11 years old and about to go through it. And so, in our families, it's having these conversations, and not just about educating, this is what happens with a woman's anatomy, but also those insecurities and those feelings around it, being caught outside. And so if my son in the future, I hope he will remember, if there's a menstruator that he sees, and, she needs his jacket because she just leaked in class, he'll be like, it's okay. He will not shame her. So, like Sarah's saying, just, 5 to 10 years, you're raising different humans, that are going into this world. And you guys are so amazing. Everybody has just kind of hit on everything. I don't want to, duplicate, but I think it's beautiful just talking about it.
Opening it up, having conversations like this, where we talk about those instances where I don't think anyone who has menstruated has not had an experience where they bled through something, or had that really is it happening type of moment. And the more we talk about it, the less the stigmatization breaks down. We can involve all the families, we can get what's needed here. So I think education is the key, right? That we're doing it, but we also need to make sure we're putting that into action. And Sister Soldier, specifically for you, what do you like most about when people come in with action? Like, what do you see most benefits the young menstruators? Is it them coming in to teach? Is it them coming in with products? What do you like to see the most of in regards to fighting period poverty?
All of the above, because we're going to be in different lanes. Because what if a mother asks you about, they said she needs surgery, and we don't want her to have surgery because if she a heavy bleeder. Because that's what the doctors is doing now. They telling the mothers you need surgery, and then they can't have kids anymore. They, that's not right. We need to educate them more on that and bring let me get somebody else to speak with you. Not to tell her, no, don't do the surgery. We want to get somebody, collaborate with somebody where they are a doctor, female doctor, or male doctor, because sometimes people want males. To educate her right. Don't just say you need a surgery next week because you're a heavy bleeder. Because when you're a heavy bleeder, they hear up and say you need surgery. But people they're not educated because they don't know how to read or write, or they don't know they right. So we would need somebody to collaborate with us with that too. But it's all above. It's not no right answer to this issue.
I think Sister brings up a really good point. Women of color are recommended to have hysterectomies way more than any other, race of women. And that's because, women of color suffer from fibroids more, which impacts your periods. And just, whole kind of like gamut of gynecological issues. So again, it just comes down to being rooted in education, not just for young boys and men, which I was advocating for earlier, but like women as well, because there's a lot to learn about our bodies, and it's a journey, and it's not something that you just learn overnight.
Oh, definitely. The biggest takeaway I'm getting from our conversation today on this panel is the education and making sure people are aware of what is happening, what's going on with their bodies, and also the distinction between different groups of people experiencing it different ways. Women of color experience it differently. Trans women and trans men experience it differently, and we're able to address it at each level. I know we're coming kind of towards our end, and there's so much we can talk about period poverty, but what I really want to know from you ladies, I would love to know what's your favorite part about working in this space, and the thing that makes you think, I'm in the right place and this is what I want to do. Nikki, I want to start with you, and I want to hear from everyone to answer that question about their favorite part of doing this type of work.
What has been most exciting is, we only formed in October of last year, in a time where everyone says it's not possible, this is really hard, why would you do it? But actually there is the most need, for this kind of work. And we had originally said, okay, we're just going to do some drives and then, go to houses, shelters, and maybe drop it off there. And it has just kind of escalated. And, when I'm sitting in this panel with you guys, our vision of ending period poverty in Hawaii, and like the global goal is 2030, right? Where the whole world should not have it. And I get so excited because, I just think of all the levels, like we start with our families, right? Whether you have boys or not, just speaking about it, normalizing it. Then we go into our communities, like Sister Soldier, being on the front lines, talking to people. Then it's like what Jessica said, right? Then you go to the state level. How do you push for different kind of legislation that just makes it equal across the board? And then I can really see it, especially as I'm talking to everyone and hearing you guys, is like now we are sisters or menstruators in arms, and I can see us pushing this across the nation. At one point, there will be a call to action, and we will all rise up together. There's always kind of competition in spaces, and I'm just like, no, in Hawaii, we're chill. We're going to collaborate, and we are going to take the whole system down because menstrual equity just needs to be a non-issue. And in like 30 years from now, you know, it's going to be in bathrooms like toilet paper. It's going to be provided by businesses, and generations will not even remember. They're going to be like, "What? You guys didn't have pads in your, in your bathrooms like us?" So that's kind of the dream that's visualizing in front of us. So that's what is super duper exciting.
Even like they're for gay people, but they're hilarious.
We're here for it. We're here for the dream. We're fighting for the dream, like you said, menstruators in arms. Sarah, how about you? What do you like most about this work that we're doing?
So I would say that when something is good, when something is true or right, or rooted in something like kindness, it is true or good or right when you're at a micro level or at a macro level. And that's why I love the concept of menstrual equity, in that it has a positive impact not only on the individual user, but then on the individual user's experience and conversation with the next person, and on a community level, and then on a national level, and then on a global level. And it doesn't just positively impact the individual woman, it positively impacts her community, and that includes men as well. And I have a great heart as a feminist, not just for women experiencing the negative effects of patriarchal ideals or concepts, but I have a great heart for men who suffer under those traditional expectations of them as well. And it has been shown time and time again that historically speaking, women have led the fight towards equality, and men have benefited as well. And so having sons, I see that as a great positive thing for them as they move forward in their lives. And so for me, the most rewarding part is that one good thing equates to so much more. And even if you can do a little bit, you're doing a lot.
I just got chills listening to what both Sarah and Nikki said, and I couldn't agree more. And I think for me personally, what is most rewarding, and this is still, a new space for me, but just moving that needle a little bit closer to normalizing all of this. Because I think if women and girls have to continue to miss work or school because of our periods, and like the shame and guilt that surrounds that, we miss out on opportunities in both of those settings, and which ultimately keeps us from reaching our full potential. And let's be real, we're already playing, catch-up game in this role of men, so we really can't afford to have anything keep us out of the workplace and in school. But I think just normalizing the fact that we may have to some days out of the month. We're just normalizing that, listen, I have to go to the restroom and change my tampon or pad. Can this call wait a few minutes? Just getting to that level of empathy, I think Sarah was talking to earlier, is what's more rewarding, so that, my future babies and future daughters don't have to live in this like stigmatized world that we're currently living in right now.
Absolutely. And Sister Soldier, you have been doing this work for a long time. You have made such an impact in your community and those who spread it out as well. What is your favorite part about doing this work?
Well, I started off just trying to work with girls and gangs, because every murder is behind a female. And then as I work with the mothers of murder victims, and I see it was other things, issues, that's what was going on. So the reason why I think this is a good panel, because as I was telling Max when I was off, that no one educated me. I just seen a gang of blood and I was scared. I ran. And I started educating young girls as I do the work, because they telling me this going on, and look at me running in the bathroom. I said, baby, it's okay.
And then I kept
Then I go buy whatever they need. And as I did that, I seen, oh, this is a real issue here. I go talk to the mother. I don't want to hear that, sister. I said, I'm not leaving. I want to talk to you. Tell me the problem. And then they start telling me issues too. Well, I don't got no tampons either. Why is it, I don't got no contacts? So I was like, oh my God. I said, I'll go get you whatever you need, hygiene, whatever you need. And that's where we start at, and that's where we come from. Just doing the work, just helping people and feeling how you feel. You got to have a passion to do the work, to collaborate with other people, to reach out. Because what each one of us doing is helping other people live and helping saving other lives. It's these simple things that these young ladies have nervous breakdown and they need mental health. It'd be simple things like this. To them, it's simple. To us, it's not. It's the work.
Powerful. It's amazing. I couldn't have ended that on a better note. Impact 6 is here. We all are in this space to make life better for people, period. And I am just, again, so grateful that you ladies took time out of your day to come and join us, to educate, to share, to inspire. Thank you so much. I cannot express that enough. I'm glad that we could connect you in this space. And yeah, we're gonna end period poverty. And I'm so grateful to be a part of that. Thank you. We did it.